The chapel doors groaned as Celia Hart shoved the bleeding stranger inside, her breath sawing in her lungs while the storm hammered against the ancient stained glass windows above. She shouldn't be here, not in the Vampire King's private sanctuary, not with a fugitive who had just been sentenced to death by the court, and absolutely not with blood spreading across the marble floor in a way that would announce their presence to every immortal within a mile. The man, barely more than a boy, really collapsed against the ornate pew, clutching his side where the guards had run him through. His eyes were glassy with pain, his dark hair plastered to his forehead with rain and sweat. "Please," he gasped, "don't let them take me back." Celia's hands shook as she pressed her jacket against his wound. She'd worked in the court's human auxiliary for 3 years, managing records and correspondence between the vampire nobility and the mortal world they'd revealed themselves to a decade ago. She knew the rules, knew the penalties. Harboring a condemned prisoner meant execution or worse, conversion without consent, left to starve in the cells beneath the castle until madness took hold. But she'd seen his trial. Seen the way Lord Christoph had smiled when he'd fabricated evidence, the way the other nobles had nodded along because this boy's only crime was refusing to give up land his family had owned for generations. Land that happened to sit above a network of caves perfect for expanding the court's underground territory. "You're safe," she whispered, though she had no idea if that was true. Just stay quiet." The chapel was cold, lit only by moonlight filtering through windows that depicted the first Vampire King's ascension. She'd cleaned this space 100 times, always alone, always during the day when the court slept. It was considered sacred ground, forbidden to anyone but King Decimon Valdris himself and the high priest who conducted the blood rites. She had maybe an hour before they tracked the boy here, maybe less. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, sharp and measured. Celia's heart stopped. Those weren't the heavy boots of guards. This was the distinctive click of formal court shoes against stone, the gait of someone who had all the time in the world because time itself bent to his will. The doors swung open without anyone touching them. King Decimon Valdris stood framed in the archway, and even after 3 years of working in his court, the sight of him drove the air from Celia's lungs. He was tall, impossibly tall, with hair like fresh snow falling past his shoulders in a straight cascade. His skin held the luminous pallor of ancient marble, and his eyes were the silver of moonlight on a blade. He wore black, as always, tailored to perfection, with a high collar that emphasized the predatory grace of his movements. He was beautiful the way winter was beautiful, deadly and absolute. His gaze swept the chapel, taking in the blood, the trembling fugitive, and Celia kneeling beside him with her hands stained red. The silence stretched like a razor's edge. Celia forced herself to stand, though her legs felt like water. "Your Majesty," "You are aware," Decimon said, his voice soft and precise as a surgeon's knife, "that this chapel is sacred ground, that only those I have personally granted permission may enter." "Yes." Her voice came out steadier than she'd expected. "I'm aware." His eyes, those terrible, beautiful eyes, fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You are aware that the creature bleeding on my altar is a condemned criminal, sentenced to die at sunset." "Yes." "You are aware that hiding him is treason, that the penalty is death." She lifted her chin. "Yes." Something flickered across his perfect features, too quick to read. He moved into the chapel with that liquid grace all the old vampires possessed, centuries of predatory evolution in every step. The door swung shut behind him. "Then you are either very brave," he murmured, circling her slowly, "or very foolish. Which is it, Miss Hart?" How did he know her name? She was nobody, just a human filing clerk who kept her head down and tried to make herself useful. She'd seen the king at a distance during court proceedings, but they'd never spoken. "Neither, Your Majesty. Just trying to do what's right." His laugh was dark, silk. "Right, an interesting concept." He stopped in front of the wounded boy, studying him with the detached curiosity of a scholar examining an insect. This one refused to sell his land to Lord Christoph. The Lord fabricated evidence of conspiracy, a simple story, repeated throughout history. "Then you know he's innocent." "I know many things, Miss Hart." Decimon turned those silver eyes back to her. "I know that Christoph is a poisonous snake who has been consolidating power through such schemes for 2 centuries. I know that this boy's execution would serve only to enrich a noble I have long suspected of treason himself. I also know that interfering with the court's judgment, even a false judgment, undermines the very foundations of our society. Despair crashed over Celia. So you'll kill him anyway, and me. That would be the law. Then do it. She stepped between Deschamon and the wounded boy, her body an inadequate shield. But you'll have to go through me first. For a long moment, the king simply looked at her. Then, incredibly, he smiled a real smile, not the cold, courtly expression she'd seen him wear in public. You would die for a stranger. How remarkably human. Better than living as a coward. The smile widened, showing the barest hint of fangs. You misunderstand me, brave Celia Hart. I said that would be the law. I did not say I intended to follow it. Hope flared, dangerous and sharp. What? Deschamon moved to the chapel's altar, placing one pale hand on the ancient stone. This is sacred ground. The old laws state that anyone who claims sanctuary here cannot be touched for 7 days. In that time, I may investigate the charges against him myself. If I find evidence of Lord Christoph's deception, and I assure you the sentence will be overturned. But the court will object. They'll say you're showing weakness. Let them. His voice dropped to something dangerous. I am Deschamon Valdris, Lord of the Blood Court, King of the Eternal Night. I bow to no one, least of all grasping nobles who forget their place. If they wish to challenge me, they are welcome to try. The temperature in the chapel seemed to drop 10 degrees, and Celia suddenly remembered that this beautiful, refined creature was also one of the most powerful vampires in existence. He'd held his throne for 400 years, and he hadn't done it through mercy. However, Deschamon continued, his tone lightening, there is still the matter of your trespass. You entered my private sanctuary without permission. That cannot go unanswered. Fear spiked through her relief. I understand. Do you? He moved toward her again, close enough that she could see the inhuman perfection of his features, the way his skin seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. You have spirit, Celia Hart, intelligence. You saw injustice and acted despite the cost. These are rare qualities in any being, mortal or immortal. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying that I have need of someone like you, someone who will speak truth even to a king, someone who will risk everything for what they believe is right. His eyes searched hers. How would you like a new position? As my personal aide? She blinked. Your what? The role comes with quarters in the royal wing, a substantial salary, and the authority to speak for me in matters of justice throughout the court. You would review cases, investigate claims, ensure that nobles like Christoph cannot twist the law to serve their ambitions. You would be my conscience, Celia Hart, in a world that has long since forgotten the meaning of the word. It was impossible, insane. She was a filing clerk, not a courtier, not someone who belonged in the rarefied, dangerous world of vampire politics. But she looked at the wounded boy slumped against the pew, thought about all the other innocents who'd been crushed by corrupt nobles, and heard herself say, yes, I accept. Dechamon's smile could have lit the darkness. Excellent. Then consider your trespass forgiven. Welcome to my service, Celia Hart. He turned to the chapel doors, which opened at his approach. I'll send my personal physician to attend to our fugitive. You should rest tomorrow. Your new life begins. Your Majesty, she called after him. Why are you doing this? Really? He paused in the doorway, moonlight painting him in shades of silver and shadow. Because I have spent 4 centuries watching the strong devour the weak. I find I have grown tired of it. Perhaps it is time for something to change. Then he was gone, leaving Celia alone with the wounded boy and the echo of words that felt like a promise. The next morning, Celia woke in quarters she barely remembered being led to. They were stunning, all dark wood and velvet, with windows that overlooked the city sprawling below the castle. Sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and rose, colors the court's residents would never see. A knock at the door announced a vampire servant with skin like porcelain and eyes like chips of amber. His Majesty requests your presence in the judgment hall, Miss Hart. I've been instructed to help you prepare. What followed was a whirlwind of preparation. Celia was dressed in clothes finer than anything she'd ever worn, a deep green gown that somehow managed to be both elegant and practical, with boots soft as butter and a silver pendant marked with the king's personal seal. This identifies you as his voice. the servant explained, fastening the chain around Celia's neck. "None may obstruct or threaten you while you wear it. To do so is to threaten the king himself." The weight of it felt like responsibility made tangible. The judgment hall was packed when she arrived. Apparently, word had spread that King Decimon was personally reviewing the fugitive's case, and every noble with an opinion had crawled out to watch. Celia felt their eyes on her, hungry, curious, calculating. Humans were common enough in the court, but rarely in positions of actual authority. Lord Kristoff stood at the center of the room, his white hair pulled back in an elaborate style, his burgundy coat dripping with gold embroidery. He looked supremely confident, and why shouldn't he? He'd orchestrated this whole thing. Then Decimon entered, and every vampire in the room bowed. He took his throne, a massive thing of black stone and silver, and gestured for Celia to stand at his right hand. The traditional position of the king's voice. Murmurs rippled through the assembled nobles. "Lord Kristoff," Decimon said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the vast chamber, "you brought charges of conspiracy against the mortal Thomas Gray. Present your evidence." Kristoff's smile was oil-slick smooth. "Of course, Your Majesty. We discovered correspondence between Gray and the Resistance, those radicals who seek to destroy the peace between our peoples. Letters planning attacks on vampire territories." "Show me these letters." Documents were produced, passed to Decimon. He studied them with the careful attention of someone who'd been reading lies for centuries. "Celia," he said quietly, "what do you make of these?" She took the pages with trembling hands, aware that every eye in the room was on her. But she'd spent 3 years managing correspondence. She knew paper, knew ink, knew the little details that separated authentic documents from forgeries. "The paper is wrong," she said, her voice growing stronger as she examined the evidence. "This is modern stock, manufactured within the last month. But these letters are supposedly from 6 months ago. The watermark doesn't match anything from that period." Decimon's expression didn't change, but something dangerous gleamed in his eyes. "Continue." "The handwriting is inconsistent. See here the pressure, the slant. It varies between letters supposedly written by the same person. And this signature," she held it to the light, "it's traced. You can see where the forger went over it twice." The hall erupted in noise. Kristoff's face went whiter than usual, and his hands clenched. "Lies! She's fabricating!" Silence. Decimon's single word cut through the chaos like a blade. "You accuse my voice of deception." The temperature in the room plummeted. Several nobles stepped back from Kristoff, suddenly unwilling to be associated with him. "I know, Your Majesty, but she is merely human. Perhaps she is mistaken." "Are you mistaken, Celia?" She met the king's eyes, saw the absolute trust there, and felt something shift in her chest. "No, Your Majesty. These documents are forgeries." Decimon rose from his throne, and the movement was like a thunderclap of implied violence. "Lord Kristoff, you have fabricated evidence to condemn an innocent man. You have manipulated the court's justice for personal gain. You have lied to your king. Your Majesty, please. The penalty for such treason is death. However, I am feeling merciful today." His smile was terrible. "You have 1 hour to flee my territory. If you are still within my borders when that hour expires, I will hunt you myself. And I promise you, Kristoff, you do not want me to catch you." The lord ran. Actually ran. All pretense of dignity abandoned. The court watched him go in stunned silence. Then, one by one, the nobles bowed to Decimon, a deeper bow than protocol required, acknowledging not just his authority, but his power. "The mortal Thomas Gray is exonerated of all charges," Decimon announced. "He will be compensated for his suffering and his land returned. This court is adjourned." As the hall emptied, Celia found herself alone with the king once more. Her hands were still shaking, adrenaline and fear mixing into something electric. "You did well," Decimon said quietly. "Very well." "I was terrified." "Yes, but you spoke truth anyway. That is courage, Celia Hart." He descended from his throne, moving toward her with that hypnotic grace. "How does it feel to overturn a lord's machinations with nothing but observation and honesty?" "Surreal, like I'm going to wake up and discover this was all a dream." "I assure you, it is quite real." He was close now, close enough that she could see the faint tracery of silver in his eyes, like frost on glass. "You have made an enemy today. Kristoff has allies, and they will not take kindly to a human embarrassing one of their own. Fear curled in her stomach. I didn't think about that. No, you thought about justice, which is exactly why I chose you. His hand lifted, and she thought for a moment he might touch her face. Instead, he adjusted the silver pendant at her throat, his fingers cool against her skin. I will not let harm come to you, Celia. You are under my protection now. That is not an honor I grant lightly. The weight of his words, of his presence, of those impossible eyes focused solely on her, it was overwhelming. Celia had never been particularly special. She'd spent her whole life being ordinary, invisible. Now she stood in the center of a vampire king's attention, and it felt like standing in the path of an avalanche. Why me? She whispered. Really, there must be hundreds of people more qualified. Qualifications can be taught, integrity cannot. He stepped back, giving her space to breathe. Besides, you are the only one who has ever broken into my chapel to hide a fugitive. That suggests either tremendous courage or profound stupidity, and I am betting on the former. Despite everything, she laughed. Possibly both. His answering smile was warm, almost human. I suspect you're right. Come, you should eat. Your kind requires regular meals, yes? We'll discuss your new duties over breakfast. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. Celia threw herself into her new role with determined focus, reviewing cases and investigating claims throughout the court. She uncovered embezzlement, fraud, and abuse of power with alarming regularity. Each time, Decimon backed her findings without question, his support absolute. She was making a difference, real, tangible difference. People, humans, and vampires both began to seek her out, trusting that she would listen, that she would care. But it wasn't just the work that consumed her thoughts. It was Decimon. He was nothing like she'd expected. Yes, he was powerful and dangerous and otherworldly, but he was also curious, thoughtful, and surprisingly funny. He asked her about human customs with genuine interest, debated philosophy over the tea he kept in his study just for her, and listened to her opinions with the kind of attention that made her feel like the only person in the world. She found herself looking for excuses to see him, needing his input on cases she could have handled alone. Lingering in his study after their meetings, talking until the sun came up and painted his quarters in light he could only see reflected in her eyes. It was dangerous, what she was feeling, impossible. He was a 400-year-old vampire king, and she was a human who would age and die in what was, to him, barely a heartbeat. But when he smiled at her arguments, when he defended her against nobles who thought her beneath their notice, when he remembered details about her life that she'd mentioned only once, she couldn't stop her heart from betraying her. 2 months after she'd become his voice, everything changed. Celia was reviewing documents in her quarters when her door slammed open. A vampire she didn't recognize lunged inside, fangs bared, moving with deadly speed. She barely had time to scream. The vampire never reached her. Decimon appeared between them like a ghost, one hand catching the attacker by the throat and slamming him against the wall with enough force to crack stone. You dare! The king's voice was death itself. You dare attack what is mine. The would-be assassin choked out something in a language Celia didn't know. Decimon's grip tightened, and the vampire's eyes went wide with terror. Kristoff sent you. I can smell his blood in your veins. You're bound to him. Decimon's free hand came up, and his nails extended into claws. Give him a message for me. Tell him that if he wants Celia Hart, he'll have to go through me. And unlike this pathetic attempt, I will not show mercy. He released the vampire, who fled like a shadow fleeing light. Then Decimon turned to Celia, and the fury in his face melted into concern. Are you hurt? No, you saved me. Of course I did. He crossed to her in 2 strides, his hands hovering over her as if checking for injuries he might have missed. Did he touch you? Threaten you? I'm fine, really. But she was shaking, the delayed shock finally hitting. He just appeared. I didn't even hear him. You wouldn't have. He was old, trained in stealth. Decimon's jaw clenched. I should have anticipated this. Kristoff is more desperate than I thought. You can't protect me every second. I knew there would be risks. You do not understand. His hands finally settled on her shoulders, solid and real and grounding. I cannot lose you, Celia. I will not. Something in his voice made her look up. What she saw in his eyes stole her breath, not the careful control he usually maintained, but raw emotion, fierce and undeniable. Your Majesty. Decimon, when we are alone, call me Decimon. Decimon, she whispered, testing the name on her tongue. What are you saying? I am saying that somewhere between your foolish bravery in my chapel and your brilliant dismantling of Kristoff's schemes, I have become utterly fascinated with you. I am saying that I think of you constantly, that I find excuses to summon you to my presence because I have grown addicted to your voice, your thoughts, your laughter. I am saying, Celia Hart, that I am falling in love with you, and it terrifies me more than anything has in 400 years. The world seemed to tilt. That's impossible. Why? Because you are human and I am not? Because you will age and I will not? Because every moment with you is precious and finite and will end too soon? His hands tightened on her shoulders. Yes, all of that is true, and none of it changes how I feel. Tears burned in Celia's eyes. I'm going to die, Decimon, in 50 years. Maybe 60 if I'm lucky. I'll be gone. You'll still be here, eternal and beautiful, and I'll just be a memory. Then give me those 50 years. Let me have that time with you, however brief. I would rather have half a century with you than an eternity without you. What about turning me, making me like you? His expression went pained. I have considered it, dreamed of it. But transformation is not a gift, Celia, it is a curse. You would lose the warmth of sunlight forever. Food would turn to ash in your mouth. You would have to feed on blood, take lives, become a predator. I cannot ask that of you. I will not be the one to steal your humanity. She reached up, cupping his face so cold, so perfect in her warm hands. What if I choose it? Not now, but someday, when I'm ready. Then I would turn you myself and count it the greatest honor of my existence. He leaned into her touch like a man dying of thirst, but that choice must be yours, and yours alone. I will not pressure you. I will love you as you are for as long as we have. I love you too, she breathed, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I've been trying not to, trying to be sensible, but I can't help it. I love you, Decimon. He kissed her then, and it was like lightning and silk, cool lips on warm gentle despite the strength she knew he possessed. She melted into him, her hand sliding into that waterfall of white hair, and felt him shudder against her. When they finally broke apart, both breathless in their own ways, he pressed his forehead to hers. You are the first thing in centuries to make me feel alive, he murmured. The first thing to make me want to be better, to build something worthy of you. You're already worthy. You're brilliant and just and kind. I'm a killer, Celia. I have spilled blood that would fill oceans. I have made decisions that haunted me for decades. I am not the hero of this story. No, she agreed. You're not a hero. You're a king who's trying to do better, who's changing an entire society because one human girl reminded you why justice matters. That's better than being a hero. That's being human. His laugh was wet. You, Celia Hart, are going to ruin me completely. Good. They spent that night talking, kissing, learning the shape of each other. Decimon was careful with her, always aware of his strength, his coldness, the fundamental differences between them. But in the quiet darkness of her quarters, with his arms around her and his voice soft in her ear, those differences seemed insignificant. What mattered was this. They understood each other, saw each other, chose each other. The next morning, Decimon made an announcement to the court that sent shockwaves through the vampire world. Celia Hart is hereby declared under my personal protection as my official consort. Any who threaten her threaten me directly. Any who harm her will face my full wrath. The assembled nobles stood in stunned silence. A human consort was unheard of, not forbidden, exactly, but so far outside protocol that no one knew quite how to react. Then Lady Seraphine, one of the eldest vampires in the court, began to clap. Others joined tentatively at first, then with growing enthusiasm. Not all of them. Celia could see the sneers, the disapproval, the naked hatred on some faces, but enough to matter. Afterwards, Seraphine approached them with a knowing smile. About time you found someone, Decimon. 400 years is too long to be alone. I was not looking, he replied, his hand finding Celia's. The best ones never are. Seraphine turned her ancient eyes on Celia. You have caused quite the stir, child. Half the court thinks you've bewitched him. And what do you think? Celia asked. I think you remind him why we built this court in the first place. Not to dominate, but to coexist. Not to rule through fear, but to earn respect through justice. She smiled, showing delicate fangs. I think you are exactly what he needs, what we all need. As word spread beyond the court, reactions were mixed. Some humans celebrated, seeing it as a bridge between the two peoples. Others protested, calling Celia a traitor to her kind. The media descended, turning their relationship into a spectacle. Through it all, Decimon remained steadfast. He ignored the critics, faced down the protesters with patient explanations, and shielded Celia from the worst of the attention. He was a wall of ice-cold determination, and nothing could move him. But Kristoff was still out there, bitter and vengeful. 3 months into Celia's new life, he made his move. She was investigating a case in the city, accusations of a vampire feeding on unwilling humans when the trap sprang. Kristoff's people had been waiting, watching, learning her patterns. They struck fast, overwhelming her guards, dragging her into a waiting vehicle. When she woke, she was in a cold stone room that smelled of earth and ancient blood. Chains of silver, toxic to vampires but merely uncomfortable for humans, bound her wrists. Kristoff stood before her, his handsome face twisted with hatred. Did you really think you could humiliate me and suffer no consequences? That your monster king could protect you from everything? Celia's head throbbed where they had struck her, but she kept her voice steady. He'll come for me. You know he will. Oh, I'm counting on it. Why do you think I went through all this trouble? Kristoff gestured to the room around them. This chamber is warded with ancient magic, bound by blood rites older than Decimon himself. When he comes, and he will come, blinded by his pathetic attachment to you, the wards will activate. They'll trap him, drain him, turn his own power against him. He'll be helpless. Horror washed over her. You can't. I can. I will. And once he's weak, once he's vulnerable, I'll take his throne and restore the court to what it should be. No more human sympathizers, no more mercy, just the natural order predators ruling prey. The court will never follow you. They'll follow strength, and once I've killed the great Decimon Valdris, prove that even he can be destroyed, they'll have no choice. He leaned close, his breath cold on her face. You should be honored, little human. Your death will reshape our entire world. He left her alone then, locked in darkness with nothing but her fear and the knowledge that Decimon was walking into a trap. She had to warn him, had to find a way out, but the chains held firm and the stone walls swallowed her screams. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost meaning. Then she felt it, a change in the air, a pressure like a coming storm. Power, vast and terrible, approaching fast. The chamber doors exploded inward in a spray of stone and steel. Decimon stood in the wreckage, his eyes blazing silver fire, his hair whipping around him in a wind that came from nowhere. He looked like wrath incarnate, like every story humans had ever told about vengeful gods made flesh. Celia, he breathed, and the relief in his voice almost broke her. It's a trap, she screamed. Don't come in the wards. But he was already moving, already crossing the threshold. The moment he did, light erupted around him. Symbols blazed on the walls, floor, ceiling, ancient vampiric runes pulsing with stolen power. They wrapped around Decimon like chains, dragging him down, and he fell to his knees with a cry of pain. Kristoff appeared in the doorway laughing. So predictable. Love makes you weak, Decimon. It always has. Decimon's face was twisted in agony, but when he looked up, his eyes held nothing but contempt. You think this is weakness? You understand nothing. I understand that you're about to die for a human who will be dust in a century anyway. I understand that I will take your throne and erase every pathetic reform you've made. I understand. You understand nothing. Decimon repeated, his voice growing stronger despite the words crushing down on him. You think love is a weakness to exploit, but it is the opposite. It is what gives meaning to eternity. It is what separates us from monsters. He was rising now, impossibly, pushing back against the wards through sheer force of will. The symbols flickered, their light becoming unstable. No, Kristoff whispered. That's impossible. Those wards have held creatures twice your age. Those creatures, Decimon said, his voice like thunder, had nothing to fight for. I do. The wards shattered. The explosion of released magic threw Kristoff across the room, slammed him into the wall hard enough to crack bone. Decimon stood in the center of the chamber, power radiating from him in waves, and he had never looked more terrifying or more beautiful. He moved to Celia, breaking her chains with casual strength, gathering her against his chest. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Decimon, behind you. Kristoff had recovered, launching himself at the king with desperate fury. But Decimon was ready. He turned, caught Kristoff by the throat, and lifted him off the ground. You tried to kill her, Decimon said softly. You tried to use my love as a weapon against me. For that, there can be no mercy. Do it then, Kristoff spat. Kill me. Prove that you're the same monster you've always been. Decimon's hand tightened. For a moment, Celia thought he would do it, would end Kristoff right there, and part of her wouldn't have blamed him. Then he loosened his grip, letting Kristoff drop to the floor. No, you want me to be a monster. Want to prove that I haven't changed. But I have changed. She changed me. He glanced back at Celia. I will not kill you, Kristoff, but you will face justice. True justice, witnessed by the entire court. Your crimes will be laid bare, and you will answer for them according to our oldest laws. Kristoff laughed bitterly. Justice? From a court that respects only power. Then perhaps it's time the court learned a new way. Decimon gestured, and guards appeared as personal guard, loyal beyond question. Take him to the cells. He will be tried at sunset tomorrow. As they dragged Kristoff away, Decimon turned his full attention to Celia. His hands moved over her gently, checking for injuries, his expression fierce with concern. When I felt you disappear from the castle, when I realized what had happened, he closed his eyes. I have never known such fear. 400 years of existence, and I have never been so terrified as I was in the moment I thought I might lose you. Celia wrapped her arms around him, feeling the cold solidity of him, the steady silence where a heartbeat should have been. You found me. You saved me. You saved yourself. You warned me about the trap, even knowing it would cost you your chance at escape. You magnificent, foolish, brave woman. He pulled back to look at her. Marry me. She blinked. What? Marry me. By human custom, by vampire law, by every rite and ritual both our peoples hold sacred. Be my partner in all things. Rule beside me. Help me build the world we both believe in. His silver eyes searched hers. I know it is fast. I know there are 1,000 logical reasons to refuse, but I have lived long enough to know that when you find something real, something true, you do not let it go. So I'm asking, Celia Hart, will you marry me? Joy and terror and love all tangled together in her chest. Yes, yes, of course yes. He kissed her, then deep and fierce and full of promise, and in that cold stone chamber that had been meant for death, they chose life instead. The trial of Lord Kristoff became the most attended court proceeding in decades. Vampires from all over the world came to witness it, along with human observers and media from every major outlet. Decimon presided with absolute authority, laying out Kristoff's crimes in meticulous detail. The forged evidence against Thomas Gray, the assassination attempt on Celia, the planned coup against the throne. The list went on. Each charge supported by irrefutable proof that Celia had helped gather. When the evidence was presented, even Kristoff's allies fell silent. There could be no defense, no argument. The crimes were too clear, too damning. Lord Kristoff, Decimon said, his voice carrying through the hall, you are found guilty of treason, conspiracy, and attempted murder. The traditional sentence for such crimes is death. However, I find myself in an unusual position. My consort has taught me that there is value in mercy, in giving even the worst among us a chance at redemption. Murmurs rippled through the assembled vampires. Therefore, your sentence is as follows. Exile for 1 century. You will be stripped of your title, your lands, your resources. You will be marked as Oathbreaker, and any who aid you will share your punishment. At the end of 100 years, if you have proven yourself reformed, you may petition for reinstatement. If not, the exile becomes permanent. Kristoff stared at him in shock. You're letting me live? I am giving you what you never gave others a chance. Use it wisely or waste it. That choice is yours. Decimon gestured to the guards. Remove him from my sight. As Kristoff was led away, the court erupted in discussion. Some praised the king's mercy. Others decried it as weakness. But none could deny that something fundamental had shifted. The court would never be quite the same. After the trial, Decimon found Celia in the royal gardens, a rare outdoor space designed for nighttime beauty, full of moon-blooming flowers and silver fountains. Do you think I was wrong to spare him? He asked, joining her on a marble bench. No, I think you were right. Killing him would have felt like justice, but it wouldn't have changed anything. This way, you've shown the court that there's another path. That strength doesn't always mean violence. You give me too much credit. Left to my own devices, I would have torn him apart. She took his hand so cold in hers, but you didn't. That's what matters. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the moon paint everything silver. Then Decimon spoke again, his voice soft. I have been thinking about our future, about what it means for you to marry someone who will not age while you do. I want you to know that whatever you choose to remain human, to eventually accept transformation, or anything in between, I will support you. Your life is your own, Celia. I will not take that from you. She'd been thinking about it too, in the quiet moments. The idea of becoming a vampire terrified her, but the idea of leaving Decimon alone again, of having only a few decades with him before age took her, hurt even more. I'm not ready yet, she said slowly. I want to experience a few more things as human. Feel the sun, taste food, have children, maybe, if that's something we both want and can figure out. She looked at him. But someday, when I'm ready, I want you to turn me. I want eternity with you, Decimon, all of it. His eyes closed, and she saw the sheen of what might have been tears, though she'd been told vampires couldn't cry. Children, he repeated. I had not even considered. It is rare, but not impossible, for vampire and human to produce offspring. The child would be half vampire, daywalker, possessing qualities of both peoples. Would you want that? With you? Yes. I want everything with you. Every possibility, every moment, every dream. He pulled her close. You have given me back something I thought I had lost forever, Celia. Hope. The belief that tomorrow might be better than today. That is a gift beyond measure. They married 3 months later, in a ceremony that blended human and vampire traditions. Celia wore white, Decimon wore black, and they exchanged vows under both sunlight and starlight. Decimon standing in shadow for the day portion, emerging to join her under the moon. The wedding was attended by thousands, broadcast around the world. It became a symbol, a statement that the two peoples could not just coexist but unite, that love could bridge even the greatest divides. Lady Seraphine officiated, her ancient voice ringing with authority as she bound their hands with silver and silk. Do you, Decimon Valdris, king of the blood court, take this human woman as your eternal consort, to honor her choices, protect her life, and cherish her soul for as long as she remains in this world and beyond? I do, Decimon said, his eyes never leaving Celia's face. And do you, Celia Hart, voice of the king, take this vampire as your eternal consort, to stand beside him, challenge him, and love him through all the years to come? I do, Celia breathed. Then by the old laws and the new, by blood and breath, by death and life, I declare you bound. What is joined here shall not be sundered. When Decimon kissed her, the assembled crowd erupted in applause, humans and vampires together, celebrating something that had seemed impossible just a year ago. The reception was held in the castle's grand ballroom, decorated in flowers that bloomed only at night. Celia danced with her new husband under chandeliers that scattered light like stars, feeling more happy than she'd ever imagined possible. Have I told you today that you are the most beautiful creature I have ever seen? Decimon murmured as they swayed together, at least 6 times, but I don't mind hearing it again. Then I shall tell you every day for the rest of our lives, however long that may be. She looked up at him, at this impossible being who had somehow become her entire world. I love you, Decimon Valdris, and I love you, Celia Valdris. He smiled at her new name, my queen, my conscience, my heart. They honeymooned in a private estate in the mountains where Decimon could walk freely at night and Celia could enjoy the sun during the day. They talked for hours, made love with a gentleness that belied Decimon's strength, and planned the future they would build together. 5 years passed. Celia continued as the king's voice, reforming the court from within. She investigated corruption, protected the vulnerable, and slowly but surely changed the culture of vampire nobility. It wasn't easy. She made enemies, faced threats, endured assassination attempts that Decimon foiled with terrifying efficiency. But she persevered, because she could see the difference she was making. Thomas Gray, the fugitive she'd saved all those years ago, became her assistant. He proved to have a brilliant legal mind and a passion for justice that matched her own. Together, they created systems of accountability that made it harder for powerful vampires to abuse their position. During those 5 years, Celia also gave birth to a daughter, Lyra, with her father's silver eyes and her mother's dark hair. A daywalker, able to exist in both worlds, neither fully human nor fully vampire, but something beautiful in between. Watching Decimon with their daughter was a revelation. He was gentle and patient, singing her ancient lullabies and teaching her about both her heritages with equal reverence. Celia had never seen him so at peace. "Thank you," he told her one night, holding their sleeping daughter against his chest. "Thank you for this. For her, for all of it. You say that like I did it alone. You gave up so much to be with me, your normal life, the chance to grow old among your own people, the ability to walk in daylight without worrying about protecting me from it." His eyes were distant. "Sometimes I fear I have been selfish, keeping you in my world." Celia moved to him, placing her hand over his where it cradled Lyra's head. "This is my world now. You, Lyra, the court, all of it. I chose this, Decimon, and I would choose it again every time." When Lyra was 3, something happened that crystallized everything for Celia. There was an outbreak of a blood disease among the younger vampires, something that caused excruciating pain and eventual madness. The court's physicians were baffled. Human doctors couldn't help, they didn't understand vampire physiology well enough. People were dying, suffering, and the divide between human and vampire communities began to widen again, each side blaming the other for the mysterious plague. Celia worked day and night, coordinating between human researchers and vampire healers, pushing them to collaborate despite centuries of mistrust. She barely slept, driving herself to exhaustion. It was Lyra who finally brought her the answer. Their daughter, with her unique hybrid biology, seemed immune to the disease. Her blood contained antibodies that neither fully human nor fully vampire blood possessed. When tested, those antibodies proved to be the cure. But producing enough cure for all the sick vampires would require Lyra to donate blood regularly, a painful process for a child so young. Lyra, wise beyond her 3 years, looked at her mother with those solemn silver eyes and said, "People are hurting. I can help. Please let me help." Celia held her daughter close, overcome with love and pride and fear. "Are you sure, sweetheart? It will hurt. I'm brave, like you and Papa." So Lyra became the source of the cure, and within weeks, the plague was ended. The child who embodied the union of two peoples had literally saved both. The gratitude from the vampire community was overwhelming, but more than that, it changed something fundamental. Lyra became a symbol of hope, proof that human and vampire together could create something stronger than either alone. Standing in the court as nobles bowed to her daughter in thanks, Celia felt the last piece of her decision fall into place. That night, she found Decimon in his study, reviewing reports by candlelight. "I'm ready," she said. He looked up, understanding immediately. "Celia, I'm ready to be turned. I've lived as human. I've experienced the sun, given birth, raised our daughter through her earliest years. I've done everything I needed to do. Now I want to do everything else with you, all the centuries ahead, all the time we can have." Decimon set aside his papers, his expression unreadable. "You are certain? Once done, it cannot be undone." "I've never been more certain of anything, except loving you." He stood, moving to her with that liquid grace. "It will be painful. The transformation. Your human body will die, and you will be reborn as something else. You will lose the warmth of daylight forever. Food will taste like ash. You will crave blood, need to feed on the living. I know. I've researched extensively. I've talked to other turned vampires. I understand what I'm giving up and what I'm gaining." She took his hands. "Turn me. Decimon. Make me your equal in all ways. Let me stand beside you, not just for decades, but for millennia." His control finally cracked, and she saw the naked hunger in his eyes, not for her blood, but for exactly this, the promise of forever. "Very well, but we do this properly, with all the rituals. You will be attended by the court's best physicians. The transformation will be overseen by Lady Seraphine herself, and Lyra will be cared for by those we trust most while you undergo the change. How long will it take? 3 days. 3 days of death, of your body rebuilding itself. I will stay with you every moment. I will not leave your side." The ceremony was held on the night of the new moon, in the same chapel where Celia had first hidden Thomas Gray all those years ago. The symmetry of it felt right. She had begun her journey into this world here, and she would complete her transformation in the same sacred space. Lady Seraphine prepared the ritual circle while Celia said goodbye to Lyra, holding her daughter close. Mama will be different when she wakes up, Celia explained. I'll look mostly the same, but I'll be stronger, faster. I won't be able to go in the sun anymore. Lyra's lower lip trembled. Will you still love me? Oh, sweetheart. Celia's heart broke and mended in the same moment. I will love you forever and always. Nothing could ever change that. Not transformation, not time, not anything in this world or the next. Promise? Promise. Thomas came to collect Lyra, giving Celia a tight hug. Thank you for everything you've taught me, for saving me all those years ago, for showing me what justice really means. Take care of our court while I'm gone, and take care of my daughter. With my life, he swore. Then it was just Celia and Decimon in the chapel, with Seraphine preparing the final elements of the ritual. Are you afraid? Decimon asked softly. Terrified, but also excited, also certain. She smiled at him. Do it. The ritual was beautiful in its own way. Seraphine spoke words in a language older than civilization, binding Celia's soul to Decimon's, preparing her body for the change. Then Decimon drew Celia close, his fangs extending, and bit down on her throat. The pain was sharp, then fading, replaced by a strange floating sensation. She could feel her blood flowing out, her life draining away, and with it went everything that made her human. The warmth, the heartbeat, the brief, fragile mortality she'd been born with. Decimon held her as she died, whispering words of love and encouragement. Then, when her heart had given its last beat, he bit his own wrist and pressed it to her lips. Drink, he commanded. Drink and be reborn. His blood was cold fire, power and ice and eternity condensed into liquid form. It burned through her dead veins, sparking transformation, rebuilding her cell by cell into something new. Something other. The pain came then, worse than anything she'd imagined. Her body was dying and living simultaneously, caught between states, breaking down and reforming. She screamed, clawed at Decimon, begged for it to stop. He held her through it all, his voice steady as stone. I know it hurts, but you are strong, Celia. Stronger than anyone I have ever known. You can survive this. Just hold on to me. Hold on. The first day was agony. The second was worse. On the third day, something shifted. The pain began to recede, replaced by a strange clarity. She could hear everything, the whisper of air through the chapel, the rustle of Seraphine's robes 20 feet away, the silent rhythm of Decimon's undead heart. She could smell blood, could sense the life pulsing through the humans in the castle above. The hunger rose, sharp and demanding, but Decimon was ready with donated blood, teaching her to feed without killing, to control the urge. On the night of the third day, Celia opened her eyes. Everything was different. Colors were more vivid, sounds more clear. She could see perfectly in the darkness of the chapel, could count the individual threads in Decimon's shirt. Her body felt light, powerful, like she could tear through steel with her bare hands. She looked down at those hands, pale now, luminous white like porcelain. When she touched her hair, she found it had turned the color of fresh snow. How do you feel? Decimon asked, and his voice was a symphony, every tone and overtone crystal clear. Alive, she breathed. More alive than I ever was before. Is that strange? No. You have become what you were always meant to be. He helped her stand, and she marveled at the easy strength, the perfect balance. Look. He guided her to a mirror. The woman looking back was Celia, but transformed. White hair, white skin, eyes that had deepened to silver blue, beautiful in that terrible, otherworldly way all vampires possessed. I look like you now, she whispered. You look like yourself, perfected, eternal. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she could feel his satisfaction, his pride, his love. Welcome to immortality, Celia Valdres. How does forever feel? She turned in his arms, looking up at this man who had been king for 400 years, who had loved her enough to break every protocol, challenge every tradition, and remake his entire world. Forever feels perfect, she said, and kissed him. The reunion with Lyra was emotional. Their daughter stared at Celia with wide eyes, taking in the changes. Mama, you look different. I know, baby, but I'm still me, still your mama. Celia knelt down, relieved to find that her new vampire nature didn't make her crave her own daughter's blood. The hybrid blood was different somehow, neither prey nor threat, just family. Lyra reached out tentatively, touching Celia's white hair. Pretty. You think so? Yes, you look like Papa now, like you match. Celia laughed, looking up at Deshamun, who was watching them with undisguised emotion. I suppose we do. Does this mean you'll live forever too? Lyra asked. You won't leave? I won't leave. I'll be here for you always, I promise. Lyra threw her arms around Celia's neck, and Celia held her daughter close, grateful beyond words that she'd made this choice, that she would get to see Lyra grow up, see what kind of woman she became, be there for all of it. The court threw a celebration in honor of Celia's transformation. It was strange, being celebrated for becoming a vampire, but also right. She had chosen this world, these people, this life. Now she was truly one of them. Lady Seraphine approached her during the festivities, a knowing smile on her ancient face. How does it feel to be truly eternal? Overwhelming, amazing, terrifying. As it should be. You have centuries ahead of you now, Celia. Millennia, if you're careful. What will you do with all that time? Celia looked across the room at Desmond, who was talking with other nobles, but whose attention never strayed far from her. She thought about the court they were building together, the changes they were making, the future they were creating. Keep fighting for justice, keep making the world better, keep loving my family. She smiled. Same things I was doing before, just for a lot longer. Seraphine's laugh was warm, spoken like a true queen, Your Majesty. The title still felt strange, but Celia was beginning to accept it. She was the Vampire King's consort, his voice, his partner in all things. She had earned that title through years of work, through standing against corruption and fighting for what was right. As the night wore on, Desmond found her on a balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. She could see every detail now, even in darkness, could pick out individual people moving through the streets far below. Any regrets? He asked, joining her at the railing. None. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner, that I wasted so many centuries alone. He took her hand, threading their fingers together. But we have time now, all the time in the world. What will we do with it? Continue reforming the court, raise our daughter, perhaps have more children. If you wish, transformation doesn't prevent it, merely makes it rarer. Travel the world, learn everything there is to know, make each day count even when we have infinite days ahead. Celia leaned into him, marveling at how perfectly they fit together now. Two immortals, bound by love and choice and the fierce belief that they could make the world better. I like that plan. Good, because I intend to spend every moment of eternity reminding you that you are loved, that you're valued, that you changed everything. She thought back to that night in the chapel, when she'd hidden a wounded fugitive and risked everything for a stranger. She'd had no idea then where that choice would lead. Couldn't have imagined that it would bring her here transformed, eternal, standing beside the most powerful vampire in the world as his equal and his love. But she wouldn't change any of it. Every moment, every choice, every struggle had led her to this perfect present. I love you, she said, the words as easy as breathing used to be, now and forever. And I love you, Desmond replied, pulling her close. My brave Celia, my heart, my eternity. They stood together under the stars, two immortals at the beginning of forever, and the future stretched out before them like a promise. Years became decades. Decades became a century. The court continued to evolve under their joint leadership, becoming a place where justice mattered more than power, where humans and vampires worked together as equals. Not perfect, nothing involving so many beings with such complex histories could be perfect, but better. Always better. Celia became known as the Justice Queen, the vampire who had once been human and never forgot what it meant to be vulnerable. People came from around the world seeking her intervention in disputes, knowing she would listen fairly to all sides. Lyra grew into a remarkable young woman, her hybrid nature allowing her to bridge worlds in ways even her parents couldn't. She became an ambassador, traveling between vampire and human territories, building understanding and peace. On their 100th wedding anniversary, Desmond took Celia back to the chapel where it had all begun. It looked the same as it had that stormy night a century ago, though the kingdom around it had changed beyond recognition. Do you remember? he asked, his voice soft with memory. You stood right there, protecting a stranger you had every reason to leave to his fate. How could I forget? It was the night my whole life changed. Mine too. He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. I had spent 400 years believing I understood the world, believing that power was all that mattered, that sentiment was weakness, that a king must be above such mortal concerns as compassion. Then you broke into my chapel, defied my laws, and reminded me what it meant to be more than a monster. Tears bled tears now, the only kind vampires could cry gathered in Celia's eyes. You were never a monster. I was becoming one. Slowly, over centuries, losing pieces of my humanity until only the predator remained. You saved me from that, Celia. You saved me from myself. We saved each other. Yes. He smiled. That brilliant smile that still made her heart soar, even though that heart no longer beat. And we will continue saving each other for all the centuries to come. That is my promise to you, my love, my eternal companion, my queen. Celia kissed him there in the chapel, under the same stained glass windows that had witnessed the beginning of their story. And as she held him close, she thought about all the moments that had led them here. All the choices, all the struggles, all the love. She had hidden a fugitive in the Vampire King's chapel, expecting death or punishment or worse. Instead, she had found life, purpose, love that would last forever. And when Decimon had discovered her that night, when he had had every right to execute her for her crime, his answer had silenced the court and changed the world. He had chosen mercy. He had chosen reform. He had chosen her. The best choices always were.